and welcome to an Esper deck tech video. So this is Noctis, Prince of Lucis. I think that's how you pronounce it. Now, lore-wise, I actually have no idea. I didn't play this Final Fantasy game. I kinda stopped a little bit before. I think this is Final Fantasy 15. 13 was the last one I played. I didn't really play that one. But he is a black, blue, white, 1 generic, a total of 4 mana for a legendary creature, human noble, for free, with lifelink, and you may cast artifact spells from your graveyard by paying 3 life in addition to paying their other cost. If you cast a spell this way, that artifact enters with a finality counter on it. The finality counter means that when the artifact dies or goes away, it goes into exile, so you can't loop a Lotus Petal, so to say. But you can loop a Mox Diamond infinitely. Now that might sound strange, but there might be a misprinting on these 2 cards basically that accidentally created this. So Mox Diamond, when it's on the stack, you have to discard a land or it will just go to the graveyard. It never comes into play, and that's the key part, because that artifact enters with a finality counter on it, and when Mox Diamond's condition isn't met, when you don't discard a land, that Mox Diamond never came into play, which means that you can loop Mox Diamond infinitely by basically losing 3 life each time, and it never comes into play, so you can never tap it for mana. So what's the point? Aetherflux Reservoir. So whenever you cast a spell, you will gain life, and casting Mox Diamond, not discarding a land, is still triggering the Aetherflux Reservoir. This means that if you have Aetherflux Reservoir and Commander in play, Mox Diamond in the grave, then you go infinite. Basically infinite life and infinite damage. Pretty good! So suddenly we have a 2-card combo that involves an auto-included card Mox Diamond. I mean, the only card you need to add is Aetherflux Reservoir, because you're auto-including Mox Diamond to begin with. After that, we still have Esper color identities to basically build the remaining deck with. For example, Esper Sentinel, a card that could be killed by your opponents that our commander could bring back into the game. Ranger Captain of Eos, Grand Abolisher, Voice of Victory, and obviously Silence. Enlightened Tutor. You can use this to find Rhetoric study as well as your Aetherflux Reservoir to win the game. But Enlightened Tutor can also find Necropotence. Normally you want to play Necropotence in Grixis, but as we are very artifact centric, Liberator Ursa's Battletopter as well as Shimmermere will work as perfect instant speed Necropotence variants. Normally you go Born Upon a Wind post Necropotence, but in this case, Shimmermere will equally do the job. Once you have Shimmermere in your hand and with a lot of artifacts, it's gonna be ritual mana like Soul Ring, Mana Vault, etc. You can cast your Aetherflux Reservoir and then just cast Mox Diamond. Don't pitch a land, it goes to grave. Now you do need to have your commander in play, but from this point, you have infinite damage in your end step. Because of this, another clean option is Bolas Citadel. Necropotence and Bolas Citadel functions really well hand in hand, because if you get stuck with the Bolas Citadel, you can use Necropotence to just get rid of the card out of the way to dig deeper, making sure your Bolas Storm Run functions better. Bolas Citadel also being an artifact means that your commander can rebuild it. But what about if we already have Mox Diamond in play? Our solution? Chalice of the Void. Remember, the artifact only gains the finality counter from the commander if it enters play, and with Chalice of the Void, any 0 CMC artifact will be automatically counterspelled by your own Chalice of the Void, going back to the graveyard where you can cast it again infinitely, similar to how you do it with Mox Diamond. So just cast your own Chalice of the Void x equals 0, and from this point you can now loop a Lotus Petal that is hanging around in your graveyard. This is going to help your pathway to potentially win if you really need the mana from the Mox Diamond. I would also like to give a shout out to Beshi the Mirror. this can search and find Aetherflux Reservoir and cast it immediately. You could also potentially consider Tesseract the Seeker. As this is going to be a heavy artifact build, he has a lot of potential different artifacts he could tutor for. Tesseract could even, for example, find a Wishclaw talisman. But a big level up play is using Tesseract the Seeker to find Defense Grid. Now sometimes people do counterspell Tesseract the Seeker, but usually they let the Planeswalker go through and they plan to interact with what's coming next. But if what's coming next is a Defense Grid, then oops, you've lost. We can view Oswald the Fiddlebender the same way. This creature can find Aetherflux Reservoir and win the game, directly putting it into play, removing any chance of people trying to counterspell it. But Oswald Fiddlebender can do the same thing and put a defense grid in play, which means that Oswald is something of like finding combo or finding a Grand Abolisher. He is basically what you need him to be. But a big upside with Oswald compared to Grand Abolisher is that people tend to be very scared of Grand Abolisher, but they usually ignore the Oswald. Or, well, it kinda depends from player to player, but in my personal experience, you're gonna be left alone sitting there and toolboxing slowly with Oswald compared to like putting a Grand Abolisher on the stack. Another potential very important card is Urza's Saga. The Saga land can tutor for Sensei's Divining Top that you're going to need with your Bola Citadel, Aetherflux Reservoir and Sensei's Divining Top combo. But Urza's Saga can also find Mox Diamond. But you can also find Vexian Bubble. Whenever a player casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. This is almost an auto-include in a lot of builds because you can just pay 1 mana and sacrifice it and draw a card. So it's a cantrip, but it's a stacks piece as long as you need it. When you need to open up the game, for example, one of your opponents has a Force of Will you need them to use against one of your other opponents, you can sacrifice the bubble to open up the play field. When you want to win with your Underworld Breach, then you can sacrifice the bubble too and win, but it's staying in play as long as your opponents are potentially a threat of doing the Underworld Breach combo themselves. So overall, a good card you don't need to break parity with. But just like Chalice of the Void, Vexian Bubble will do the same thing. So if you have a Vexian Bubble in play, your Commander in play, Aetherflux Reservoir in play and a Lotus Petal in your graveyard, you have infinite. Because the Vexian Bubble is going to counterspell your own Lotus Petal, meaning you can go infinite. And last but not least, we're also playing Thassa's Consult. With Esper Color Identities, it's a no-brainer you're auto-including this. Tainted Pact is a really good tutor here, by the way. As we are somewhat of a one-card combo with the Aetherflux Reservoir, you can use it to just tutor for it and win the game. It doesn't matter if your entire deck goes away, as long as you have your Mox Diamond in play or in your hand, or you have that Chalice Void, Vexian Bubble stuff, you can just use the Tainted Pact to find the key card combo and win the game without any library remaining. Today's deck list has been built by Pontus. If you wanna take a look at exactly how Pontus have put it together. In the end, Noctis, Prince of Lucis, is a very cool Esper boss with some cool potential value grinding capacities, as you can rebuild that Esper Sentinel, but you can also rebuild a lot of your artifact-centric combos, so there's an appeal to it. He also has like lifelink, and that can be kinda good when you're planning to win with potentially Necropotence or Bolas Citadel. But you can also just attack until you have like 55 life and put Aetherflux Reservoir in play and have like kill player on the ready in instant speed if you need to. So in the end, I do think that this commander is going to appear in a few cEDH games here and there. Regardless, thank you so much for watching and I hope you enjoy the video. I'll see you guys next time.